spent the day in bed. Very happy I did, yes, I spent the day in bed. As the worker's staying slave, I spent the day in bed. I'm not my type, but I love my bed. And I recommend that you stop watching the news, because the news contrives to frighten you, to make you feel small and alone, to make you feel that your mind isn't your own. I spent the day in bed. It's a consolation when all my dreams are perfectly legal in sheets for which I paid. I am now laid, and I recommend to all of my friends that they stop watching the news, because the news contrives to frighten you, to make you feel small and alone, to make you feel that your mind isn't your own. Oh, time, do as I wish.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Today is November 11th, 2018. Today's date marks the 100-year anniversary of the end of the First World War. Now on this channel, I talk about the language of Gematria, which is perhaps the most hidden component of numerology that exists. And numerology is very, very significant to the global elite and the top 1%, maybe even less, that runs this world. And in this video, I'm going to show you how the elite is currently practicing numerology, whether it be through dates on the calendar or through the language of letters and numbers. And for those of you who are doubting the fact that numbers might not be important, might not be a big deal, just look at the end of World War I and consider that it occurred on the date November 11th, the date written 11/11. Not only that, but the treaty was signed at 11 a.m. So it's said that the war ended on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. If that's not enough for you, consider that the 11th Field Artillery Regiment is what was used to celebrate the end of the war. A ship named Calamity Jane fired a single shot. We'll talk about that in a second. But the treaty that was signed on that date only lasted a period of 36 days. It wasn't until the Treaty of Versailles, which was signed the following year, that the war officially ended. The Treaty of Versailles took effect on January 10th, 1920. The date January 10th, written 1/10, in numerology, zeros are ignored, so this basically reflects another 11. In this language of Gematria, Treaty of Versailles has a reverse reduction value of 110. 110, just like the date that it took effect, and again, a lot like the number 11. Wikipedia is part of this entire mainstream media operation, and they definitely pay tribute to this code of letters and numbers as well. Just look at the fact that they put a picture from Philadelphia here on the Wikipedia page for Armistice Day. Why would they choose Philadelphia? Well, using the standard alphabetic order, which numbers the alphabet 1 through 26, each letter relative to its position, Philadelphia has a numeric value of 101, P the 16th letter, H the 8th, I the 9th, and so on. What you're looking at here on the screen are what we call the 4 base ciphers of Gematria. And again, the most basic is the alphabetic order in the top left of your screen, the alphabet numbered 1 through 26. This order can also be reversed, so Z is 1, Y is 2, and A is 26 to create our secondary cipher. Both methods can then be reduced to a single digit by adding the digits together. This gives us both our full reduction and reverse full reduction methods. And again, this language, as I just showed you, used alongside dates on the calendar. One other cipher I want to mention is Jewish Gematria. This is based on the ancient Latin alphabetic order, the more modern English characters placed at the end. And this method actually more closely mirrors ancient Hebrew Gematria and Greek isopsephy charts, where the letters are amplified rather than reduced. So here we see that they chose to fire a celebratory shot with what is this? An artillery gun named Calamity Jane. See how Calamity Jane equals 1210 in Jewish Gematria? The number 121 is 11 times 11. So how perfect. On 11/11, Calamity Jane fires off this shot. So these methods are interlinked, but again, we're going to primarily use the alphabetic order and the reduction method as we go along. So first, we're going to look at a news story from the mainstream. We're going to start with this story about Pete Davidson and Dan Crenshaw on Saturday Night Live. And what this is an absolutely perfect example of how the mainstream media is still, to this very day, using the language of letters and numbers to fabricate mainstream news stories. The way this whole thing was presented to the public is that Pete Davidson made fun of Dan Crenshaw last week, and then Crenshaw came on to Saturday Night Live to accept an apology and poke fun at Pete Davidson himself. But what few people realize is that this entire ritual was coordinated from the beginning. Pete Davidson was told to write the joke, or it was written for him, and they knew they were going to get together well before the joke was performed last week. So let's talk about how this was carried out ritualistically by the numbers. Now, Dan Crenshaw, the reason this man is wearing an eye patch is because he lost his eye next to an improvised explosive device that went off in Afghanistan when he was on his tour of duty. And here he is on the eve of Armistice Day, the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I. In Gematria, this is called Pythagorean Gematria, also the full reduction method. Armistice Day sums to 55, with each letter reduced to a single digit. Pete Davidson was born on November 16th, 1993. If you measure from his birthday to the birthday of Dan Crenshaw, which is March 14th, Pi Day of 1984, you find that they were born exactly a span of 505 weeks apart. Now here they are coming together for an apology on the eve of Armistice Day, which sums to 55. There's another significant form of gematria called single reduction. The only difference between single and full reduction is the letter S. Because S is the 19th letter, 1 plus 9, when only reduced once, is 10. So Armistice Day sums to 64 in that method. In reverse reduction, Veterans Day, which is what we call it here in America, sums to 64 as well. And here's a story about Daniel Crenshaw, whose name sums to 64 in reduction, coming together on SNL with Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson, 64 in the reverse reduction method. Also pay attention to how Pete Davidson sums to 134 using the alphabetic order. Veterans Day sums to 134 in that same method. Crenshaw has a nickname. He's also called Big Boss. We're going to talk about the 73 in ordinal in a second, but I want to point out the 116. If I'm not mistaken, 44 is also the gematria of Veterans Day and reduction. Yes, it is. But in the reverse order, Big Boss equals 116. And think about how this man was just elected to Texas's 2nd Congressional District on the date November 6th, written 11/6. Not only that, but keep in mind that this was the 116th United States Congress. So Big Boss 116 elected on 11/6 to the 116th Congress. And if you measure from his birth date to Pete Davidson's birth date, you find they were born barely 116 months apart. As far as the 73 goes, Crenshaw's birthday, March 14th, he typically celebrates this on the 73rd day of the year. Using the S exception, Daniel Crenshaw equals 73, all syncing up with the Gematria of Big Boss, 73 ordinal. So his birthday, 3/14, we call this Pi Day. The first three digits of pi are 3.14. And now the date that he was on Saturday Night Live, November 10th, was the 314th day of the year. Now when we're talking about 314 and pi, we're talking about the mathematics of the circle. And in the circle, there's 360 degrees. 360 has an ordinal value of 227, which is interesting because if you take 22 divided by 7 on a calculator, you get the first three digits of pi, 3.14. And this also works in Gematria. 22 divided by 7, when spelled out, using the alphabetic order, sums to 314, just like it does when the equation is run on a calculator. This language of Gematria is essentially geometry within the language. Geometry has the same value both forwards and backwards. So again, talking about the number 360, well, during last night's episode of Saturday Night Live, as the clock struck midnight, Pete Davidson became 360 days after his birthday. Meanwhile, Dan Crenshaw turned 242 days after his birthday. And in the reverse alphabetic order, Daniel Crenshaw equals 242. Now, there's something else that sticks out about the Gematria of Armistice Day. Armistice Day sums to 127, 55, and 197. It's said that Crenshaw lost his eye in Afghanistan. Afghanistan also sums to 197. But what I want to point out is that the phrase Masonic cycle has the same gematria in 3 of these ciphers as Armistice Day. And this might seem random, but if you follow my work, you understand that the Masonic cycle is of utmost significance to the cycles of time and numerology in general. The Masonic cycle is a period of 19 years. And notice how not only does Masonic cycle equal 197, but so does 19 years, 197. This syncs up with exactly 235 synodic months within basically a couple hours of each other. And 19 is a significant number of time in Greek. In Greek isopsephy, time equals 109. Or I think time equals 67. The word for moon equals 109. Well, anyway, here we are with a numeric ritual involving a guy named Pete. Pete sums to 19 in reduction. The name Dan, using the alphabetic order, equals 19. Also, notice how they showed that this was a 1 minute and 31 second clip. Virtually every number displayed to us in an article such as this is going to be significant. But they're a little more clever than this, right? So it's not just 131. This 1 minute 31 seconds is actually 91 seconds. And this story is about an apology, which sums to 91, being made to a man named Crenshaw, which equals 91. Now, if you reverse the 91, you get the number 19. And in reverse gematria, the name Pete Davidson equals 190. Again, this 190 ties us back to the 19 that we're talking about with the Masonic cycle and all this other good stuff. Also, perhaps worth pointing out that Dan Crenshaw equals 110, just like the word Metonic, 110 in the reverse order. And it was Pete Davidson who apologized to him, apologized 110. All right, so is my sound on this time, guys? It looks like everything's working out much better. Thanks to everybody who's hopping on this morning, whether you're watching live or archived. Always appreciate the viewership, but more importantly, please share this video, like, subscribe, make sure you hit that notifications button. You know, YouTube doesn't like my channel. This language of letters and numbers is supposed to be secret. Channels like myself, Zach Hubbard, Chigozi, we all get squashed. We've all been deleted. Again, this stuff is not meant for the masses, so the more likes, the more subscriptions, the more chance that more people will wake up. And the more people that wake up, the better chance we have of toppling this and creating a better life for everybody. And, you know, what I want to remind people is that just because Freemasonry and all these secret societies are ruling over us by the numbers like this, doesn't necessarily mean that these societies should be completely abolished and all the people removed and killed. While I do believe that the societies should be abolished to some extent, we need to understand that, you know, the wealth that's being built by the 1%, by the wealthy elite, needs to be spread about and shared so that we can all live good lives and, you know, not have to work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week like slaves. There will have to be jobs to some extent. We'll still have to do some things, but for 5 of our 7 days every week, to have to work for the coin that they require for us to live in this nation is pretty crazy. So here's another story that was done completely by the numbers this week. Everything that our federal government does is by this Kabbalistic code of numerology and Gematria. And perhaps no better example is shown than the resignation of Jeff Sessions this past week. So let's talk a little bit about Jeff Sessions. First of all, just check out his name in Gematria. Using the alphabetic order, his name sums to 146. His full name is Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. And check this out. In reduction Gematria, this also sums to 146. 146 is a significant number to Donald Trump. His birthday is the 14th of June, written internationally as 14/6. Also check out how Jeff Sessions was born in Selma, Alabama. Selma equals 146, Jewish Gematria. And if you measure from Donald Trump's 14/6 birthday to the resignation of Jeff Sessions on November 7th, it was exactly 146 days. Meanwhile, Jeff Sessions celebrates his birthday on December 24th. This year, his birthday falls on a date with a life lesson number of 47. Notice how in reduction Gematria, Jeff Sessions equals 47. Well, if you measure from his resignation to his birthday, it was 47 days. Not only does president equal 47, but the name Trump equals 47 in the reverse alphabetic order. And this number, 47, so significant to this entire code. Not only does the word government equal 47, the Freemasons have something called the 47th problem of Euclid, which is about establishing foundation. 4 is the number of foundation, and 7 is the 4th prime number. And in Gematria, foundation equals 47. And really, whether you vote Republican or Democrat, you're really just voting for one side of the same coin. Either way, the Democrat or Republican president, which sums to 47, is going to be sitting in the White House, which sums to 47. And this is all because our system is built around only 2 parties. 2 parties summing to 47 in reduction. So we're also going to talk about not just Jeff Sessions, but also the man who replaced him. This guy's named Matthew Whitaker. And when Jeff Sessions, whose name sums to 47, took office, Matthew Whitaker was 47 years old. This man's full name is Matthew George Whitaker. He's connected to Jeff Sessions through Gematria. Sessions took office on February 9th of last year, which is the date that leaves 325 days on the calendar. The name Matthew George Whitaker equals 325 in the reverse alphabetic order. This is a number that's significant to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. The Scottish Rite, whose 33rd degree headquarters, which has 33-foot tall pillars. Remember, Masonry equals 33, and it's said that their highest degree is the 33rd. But if you write out Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, you get this value of 325 in ordinal. In reduction gematria, Scottish Rite of Freemasonry sums to 127. Matthew Whitaker became the Attorney General. General equals 127. And Whitaker's birth numerology, 10 plus 29 plus 19 plus 69, gives us 127. The name Sessions, meanwhile, sums to 29. Again, think about how this man took office on the date February 9th, written 2/9. The date that he resigned, November 7th, had a life lesson number of 29. November 7th had standard numerology of 36, 11 plus 7 plus 18. The word resign not only sums to 36 in the standard reduction method, but also in the reverse reduction method. We call this double gematria. And the fact that the United States Attorney General is so lined up with Donald Trump in the first place is no mistake. In reduction gematria, United States Attorney General has a value of 112. In the reverse order, Donald equals 112. Using the alphabetic order, United States Attorney General sums to 337. And in this study of numerology, prime number relationships are of utmost significance. 337 is the 68th prime number. Trump's full name is Donald John Trump, which sums to 68. In the reverse order, Donald John Trump equals 220. U.S. Attorney General equals 220. And now look at the name of the new U.S. Attorney General. Matthew Whitaker equals 220. You also have to appreciate how his name sums to 185 and 68. That's the same as Donald John Trump, who he's working for. So all of these positions in our federal government are by this code. And Jeff Sessions, perhaps the least of all exceptions. All right, so next on the docket, I want to talk about this blockbuster trade that we had in the NBA yesterday. And if you think it's kind of surprising that here I am talking about the NBA, you should be, because I almost never talk about the NBA. But what people need to understand is that the National Basketball Association, the last thing it cares about giving you is real basketball competition. This league is completely rigged, completely crafted by the numbers. The refs are in control. Most of the players are in on it, if not all of them, probably all. And it wouldn't even surprise me if they're using technology to make the basketball go in the hoop when they need it to be and to push it away when it shouldn't be. So now we're going to look at this blockbuster trade that sent Jimmy Butler from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm actually going to start down here with the number 93. Minneapolis, Minnesota sums to 93 in reduction gematria. This number 93 is very significant in relation to Christianity, and this language of gematria, rooted in the Bible, so the number 93 is so significant. Consider that Jesus, who was sent to save humanity, is God's son. God's son equals 93. It's said that he was Jesus of Nazareth, which sums to 63. This man ultimately died for our sins on a crucifix, which sums to 93. And if you do a little research, you find that he was crucified on the 93rd day of the year, according to some scholars. It's also said the crucifixion occurred between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. We're talking about God's Son summing to 93. Isn't it interesting that the sun is supposedly 93 million miles away? The New Testament, which begins with the 42 generations to Jesus, starts with the 930th chapter of the Bible. It's even said that Adam, the first character in the Bible, the first living character, is said to have lived to 930 years old. So this 93 of utmost significance to Christianity, and it seems to be coded into Minneapolis. You'll see that Minneapolis sits on the 93rd meridian west. And as I showed, in Gematria, Minneapolis, Minnesota sums to 93. So here we're talking about a trade which sends Jimmy Butler and Justin Patton to the Philadelphia 76ers. When you add Jimmy Butler and Justin Patton, the two players leaving the Timberwolves, it sums to 93. In fact, the name Justin equals 93 in the alphabetic order. So let's look up Jimmy Butler on Wikipedia and then his teammate, Justin Patton. Justin Patton was born June 14th, 1997, 6/14/97. And then we have Jimmy Butler, the basketball player, who was born on September 14th, 1989. And would you believe it? These two men's birthdays are separated by exactly 93 months. Both men are being traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves, which sums to 93. They're being shipped off to the Philadelphia 76ers, which sums to 93. The man who pulled the trigger on the trade, Tom Thibodeau, he's the general manager of the Minnesota Timberwolves, the president of operations. He was born on January 17th, which means that on the date of this trade, which went down yesterday, he was 9 months and 3 weeks after his birthday. I mentioned how prime numbers are super significant to this study. There's a cipher called primes, which is the alphabetic order which uses associated prime numbers. These are only numbers that are divisible by 1 and itself. And what do you know? Using prime numbers, Jimmy Butler sums to 487, which is the 93rd prime number. So, if that's not enough for you, there's actually a little bit more. I just want to point out that this whole trade from the Timberwolves made the news on the date 11/10 or 10/11. And with the S exception, both Minnesota Timberwolves equals 111. So does Minneapolis, Minnesota, 111. And the reason this trade was made is because the Timberwolves, I guess, are just spiraling. They just lost their 5th straight game before this trade. That put their record to 4-9. And then they traded Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler equals 49 in the reduction method. Here's another thing that I want to point out about this trade. These men, although they're paid very well, are technically slaves of the owners who operate these leagues. These owners certainly don't have to show up to every single game. They generally pretty much do what they want. You know, whether they be on vacation, visiting friends, eating out, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is their world. They get to do whatever they like. Now, I want to point out that this blockbuster trade, as it was being called on ESPN, blockbuster trade in Gematria sums to 59. And the date of the trade, 11 plus 10 plus 20 plus 18, equals 59. And just think about this in regards to the slave trade, right? The word slave equals 59. And of course, in history, this country was built on the slave trade. The word Negro also equals 59. So does the word blues, a type of music that's associated with black people throughout history. Now, Jimmy Butler, there was a game last night, but the trade took place too close to the game, so he didn't play for the 76ers. His first game with Philadelphia is going to be on November 12th, and that game will be 59 days after his birthday. The number 59 is always used in racial propaganda. You know, think about how Black History Month ends on February 28th, which is the 59th day of the year. February is the only month that in reduction sums to 42, just like the N-word, which sums to 42 in that same method. Remember the story about Rosa Parks sitting on the bus? Bus equals 42. It's because all of this stuff is fabricated by this code. Just a couple other things. I mean, that 93 riddle with this trade is definitely the big thing to take away, but also consider how Minnesota equals 38. The word traded equals 38 in reverse. This trade occurred 308 days before Jimmy Butler's birthday. He's also 44 weeks before his birthday. And the teammate that he was traded along with was Justin Patton, which sums to 44. And not only is Minnesota on the 93rd meridian, but it's also on the 44th parallel. All right, guys, two more stories that I'm going to look at here. Once again, just want to thank everyone for popping in today. Really wish the viewers would go up. I feel like I'm always floating around 50. Isn't this work pretty damn good? Like, isn't this whole language pretty damn telling about what's happening? How is this not spreading? I mean, are we really getting squashed this well? It just blows my mind. Maybe Zach's live. I don't know. All right, so we're going to talk about this story regarding Emmanuel Macron, who is created a little tension with Donald Trump today, I guess. It said that he's rebuking nationalism, saying it's the opposite of patriotism. And I'm going to talk about why this man is in the news on Armistice Day, talking about nationalism. Notice how the word nationalism equals 127, just like Armistice Day. What a great topic for today. 127 is the 31st prime number. Just earlier this week, we had a terror attack in Melbourne, Australia. Melbourne, Australia equals 127. It said that the attacker was 31 years old. And then we were told his name was Hassan Khalid Shire Ali, which sums to 127 in reverse Gematria. Remember, Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, 127 reduction. In reduction, Armistice Day sums to 55. And today, Emmanuel Macron is 5 weeks and 5 days before his birthday. With the S exception, Armistice Day summing to 64, just like the reverse reduction value of Veterans Day, 64. The name Macron equals 64, alphabetic order. This particular Armistice Day has standard numerology of 40, 11 plus 11 plus 18. The 40th prime number is 173. And Emmanuel Macron's full name, Emmanuel Jean-Michel Frédéric Macron, sums to 173 reverse reduction. In Jewish gematria, the name Emmanuel sums to 331. This headline that CNN gave us, Macron rebukes nationalism as Trump observes Armistice Day. This sums to 331 or 3,310, but essentially the same number. Also note the crafty 333 over here in reverse reduction. But this 331, like Emmanuel, this is going to bring us to Freemasonry in the Scottish Rite. And you know, it's funny, I just got a comment the other day asking me why I focus on the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry and not these other secret societies. And understand, no secret society is more ubiquitous in this nation, and of course the entire world, as Freemasonry. Freemasonry, it's said that they used to have literally millions of members. Now it's said it's just a couple 100,000, but, you know, nobody's really keeping track. It could certainly be a lot more. 331 is a prime number. It's the 67th prime number. And in single reduction gematria, the word Freemasonry sums to 67. Emmanuel Macron, here he is bickering with Donald Trump. Macron's birthday falls 6 months and 7 days after Trump's. And here he is comparing patriotism, saying it's the opposite of nationalism. Patriotism equals 67. Now, if you don't use the S exception, Freemasonry equals 58. That's the same as Emmanuel Macron, 58. Macron was born in the year 77. Emmanuel Macron equals 77 in reverse reduction. Notice how France and Masonic has virtually the same gematria. The only ciphers in which these values differ match when they're reversed, 47 to 74 and 34 to 43. But there's a lot more about Freemasonry here. Remember, it's the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry whose 33rd degree temple is in Washington, D.C. Using the alphabetic order, Scottish Rite of Freemasonry equals 325. Emmanuel Macron, on this day's date, is 325 days after his birthday. When Macron was born, the date's life lesson number was 57. In reduction, Scottish Rite equals 57. There's another very significant form of gematria called trigonal. I said very significant. Let's go with moderately significant. And this cipher is traced back to Hebrew, where triangular numbers are used in accordance with the alphabetic order. Using this method, Scottish Rite equals 1448. Emmanuel Macron, looking at his full name once again, Emmanuel Jean-Michel Frédéric Macron. Which method is it, guys? Oh. Well, when you take these E's, right, and take out the foreign characters, the accents, I don't know, guys, maybe it's a coincidence, but his name sums to 1448 in Jewish, just like Scottish Rite. But really, it's not just the 1448 that's significant. It's also the 448, because ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry sums to 448 in ordinal. Emmanuel Macron took office on May 14th of 2017. Measuring from that date to the date of this news story, it's exactly 78 weeks. Scottish Rite in reverse reduction equals 78. So if you're wondering why this guy's in the news, here's your frickin' answer, guys. I mean, it's numerology. It's, unfortunately, it's going over far too many people's heads. One last thing about the Masonic numerology I want to mention here is that in Sumerian gematria, the alphabetic order times 6, Masonic has this value of 444. The 444th prime number is 3,119. And if you measure between Macron's birthday and Donald Trump's birthday, you find it's 31 years and 190 days, like 3119. All right, there's one more story I'm going to look at, and then I'll browse through the chat and see if anyone threw anything interesting down. I'm sure there's probably something I'm going to end up missing, but, you know, that's just how it goes, guys. I just did want to mention how Google put out a doodle of Amanda Crow. Amanda Crow is an Eastern Band Cherokee woodcarver who passed away in 2016, and this doodle was commemorating her life. Now, what I found interesting is that usually the Google Doodle celebrates a birthday. So it'll say, like, you know, someone's 117th birthday or something like that. But that wasn't the case with Amanda Crow. November 9th, the date that they have this Google Doodle up, was neither her birthday nor was it the date that she died. So let's think about why it would have been on this date. Amanda Crow passed away on September 27th, 2004. Not 2016. I don't know why I said 2016. So the date that Google paid tribute to her had a date, was a date with full numerology of 58, 11 plus 9 plus 20 plus 18. Now, the 58th prime number is 271. The date that she died, September 27th of 2004, was the 271st day of a leap year. And in the language of Gematria, Eastern Band Cherokee, Amanda Crow, has an ordinal value of 271. But think about the date, November 11th. It's written 11/9 here in the United States, but most parts of the world write this date 9/11, like 911. And if you go to Amanda Crow's birth date, which was July 16th, 1928, to the date of the Google Doodle, look how old she would have been. 90 years and 116 days. So on the date 119, we get this number, 9116. And when you turn 9116 upside down, it's still 9116. The Eastern Band Cherokee of Indians is located primarily in North Carolina, from what I understand. North Carolina woodcarver has this value of 119, interestingly enough. The word Indians sums to 119 in the reverse order. And it's my suspicion that this Indian was a ritual human sacrifice. Notice how in Satanic Gematria, ritual human sacrifice has this value of 911. Satanic Gematria, the cipher that's built around the number 666. But 911 is connected to the divine feminine. And almost always when we see 911, or when we see a story about a woman, this 911 is going to be coded all over it. You know, you flip 911 upside down, you get 116. The word girl equals 116 in the same method. I struggle to conclude that this is a coincidence. 67, by the way, is the gematria of the word female in this cipher. Female summing to 67, the 19th prime number. The word carver equals 67. This carver was from North Carolina, 67. I saw that they also referred to her as a Cherokee artist, which sums to 67. And guys, that's not necessarily a good number. I mean, all of these numbers have duality, but when you see 67 coded like this, it's usually pointing at blood sacrifice, human sacrifice, also summing to 67 ordinal, or in reduction. In reverse reduction, North Carolina sums to 77. Again, that's the home of the Cherokee Indians, which sums to 77. This particular Cherokee Indian was named Amanda. which sums to 77 in Jewish Gematria. Amanda died 73 days into her 77th year since birth. Numbers that are found all over the Gematria here of the Indians in Carolina. Carolina sums to 73. This is another number of sacrifice. Sacrifice equals 73, so does ritual sacrifice in reduction. This 73 days is also 10 weeks and 3 days. The word Indian equals 103. If you were to include the end date, she died in her 74th day of her age. The word killing equals 74. In English Extended Gematria, Eastern Band Cherokee has this Gematria of 704. In regards to her dying 2 months and 11 days after her birthday, notice how it's this 73 days. You know, there's so many connections with Gematria and dates on the calendar like this, but I want to point this out again. So frequently, 73 days is also 2 months and 11 days. So sacrifice equals 73. Ritual human sacrifice equals 211. The word killing in prime numbers also summing to 211. One more thing to end on for this decode. Eastern Band Cherokee has a reverse value of 340. And also notice the 83. These numbers are both found in the Gematria of murder, 83 and 34. Indians equals 34. The name Amanda equals 34. The date that she was born had reduced numerology of 34. Her birthday also had a life lesson number of 43 and full numerology of 70. And I just found it interesting that both Cherokee equals 43 and 70. And with the S exception, Indians equals 43 and 70 as well. All right, guys. So a special thanks to to those of you who stuck through my live stream where I didn't even know that I wasn't heard by anybody. Like, I forgot to turn my volume on because I got way too many things that I'm trying to operate at the same time. And it was funny because I came back and there were still 30-plus people watching. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, you must really enjoy watching Gematria, too. I see some people talking about drugs. I just want to point out that I think a few more states legalized marijuana, or at least a referendum to legalize it. I'm really curious to find out now. I wonder if it was just Milwaukee County. This might take a little more research, but I did find it interesting. I think Milwaukee County actually made a movement to decriminalize it. So that's all pretty cool. I think a lot of us will be happy to see fewer people being thrown in jail for bullshit like, you know, what they smoke in their own house. Interesting comment here from this NPC. He says, I can't imagine being the one organizing the Gematria. It seems exhausting. Well, there's no possible way that these people are not using software to organize these rituals. And the reason I say that is because it's just so solidly coded. It's like they're virtually finding the person who's coded the best for the ritual, from what I can tell. So they must have a database where all these Masonic puppets are in there. all of their names, all of their birth dates. If they have a project like a band or a pseudonym or something like that, all that's in a database. And then what they do is just punch in certain numbers and find out where the connections exist. So the fact that Pete Davidson made fun of Dan Crenshaw, for instance, that connection was made as the result of an algorithm. I highly doubt that someone was shuffling through a card catalog of people and just making measurements and, measuring this guy. No, there's no 55 there. No, there's no 55 there. And then 3 days later, he finds someone who's 505 weeks apart from each other so that they can do a ritual for Armistice Day, which sums to 55. It just doesn't seem likely. So I assure you guys, they're using software for sure. I mean, just think about it, computers have been around for close to 100 years now. And the television has been around for over 100 years. These things are very, very complex technologies. And it wouldn't surprise me if artificial intelligence is responsible for a lot more than what we know. And I say that because as someone who's exposing this numerology that the occult is using, I've been, to a degree, targeted by their technology, right? And I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about how they were targeted individuals and stuff, and, it's not like my life has been made a living hell or anything like that. The way I see it, a lot of people who come forward and talk openly about how they've been targeted by the government, I believe some of those people are controlled opposition. And the reason I say that is because some of the things that they say happen to them are so extreme, and maybe it's true. I'm not saying don't believe these people. I'm just saying that some of the things they say are so extreme that it's almost as if it's designed to keep people from speaking out. It's almost as if they are driving this ideology that if you speak out, they're going to mess with you. They're going to ruin your life. Well, in my instance, my life has not been ruined. I still have my job. I still have my friends. My family still cares about me. Nothing's spiraled out of control. However, some really, really weird things happened. And it's not anything where I could simply say, yes, 100% someone is watching my screen. Or, someone is listening in on my conversations, 100% certainly. But, it's just little weird things. I mentioned, I probably mentioned this before, but I was on my computer one day, and for probably a week or two, I had noticed that there was a buzzing over my house. And see, I live by an interchange in Milwaukee County, a big interchange where several freeways meet at once. So if I hear a helicopter overhead, I really don't think anything of it because there's traffic, there's car accidents, whatever. It's a busy area. But I did think it was a little strange because the buzzing would be, it would start quickly. It would come into audio, it would be audible to me very quickly. It would just brrrr. But then the buzzing would stay consistently loud as if it was directly overhead. And then I noticed when it went away quickly. It's not like it was really loud and then it got quiet over 3 minutes. It was 15 seconds from the point where I did hear it to the point where I did not hear it, okay? So this happened for a week or two, several times, to the point where I finally realized it and said, okay, this is kind of weird. So I was online and I typed to a friend of mine. I said, hey, there's been this buzzing over my house for the past week on and off, and it's just really weird. And I kid you not, Truth Seeker, within 10 to 15 seconds, a pop-up came up on my Windows 10 computer, and it said, would you like to enable remote desktop viewing? And I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? And I clicked no. I restarted my computer. The buzzing went away within a minute. And I don't recall hearing the buzzing after that. So when I say, I've been targeted by weird technologies, that's what I'm talking about. That's a perfect example of what I'm experiencing or what I did experience. Granted, these types of things have really slowed down. you know, if you've been paying attention to my channel, you realize that my internet has been cut during my podcast. Like, it was like 6 of 7 weeks in a row that happened. I still get calls from suspicious phone numbers, but there was a while where the calls were literally the exact numbers I was tweeting out on my Twitter page. 20 minutes later, I would get a phone call from that number. I also very frequently get phone calls from numbers that are 1 digit off from my phone number. Or there's just 1 digit transposed. You know, it's the same numbers, but a couple of them are just flipped. I'm trying to think of another really good example. I had a fantasy draft at my house last year, and I don't play fantasy football anymore. Fantasy football is actually part of the reason I got into this numerology stuff, because I realized something was going on. I was paying way too much attention to the numbers. And I had my buddy Jose over at the house, and after the draft, he signed on to Yahoo so he could enter the draft picks. And it was he and his 3 younger brothers in my living room. And when they went on to Yahoo, it took them to espanol.yahoo.com on my computer, mind you. And, you know, of course, here I got 4 Mexicans in my living room, and they go straight to Yahoo, and it takes them to the Espanol website. That's never happened on my network before in my house, nor on my computer. And no matter what we did, we could not get to the English version of Yahoo. So what's up with that? They know that there's Mexicans in my living room, so they bring up the Spanish-speaking websites? Like, how is that possible, guys, you know? That's the type of fuckery that I've experienced. It's not something where, like, whoa, someone was camped outside my house, and now I'm scared. It's not like I got a message in the mail with a death threat or anything like that. It's just these little weird pokes. These little weird things where it's like, huh, you know, is somebody watching me? Is somebody listening to me? You know, I moved into my house on my 32nd birthday last year, and in July, the following month, We Energies, who is the power distributor for the Milwaukee area, they sent someone to my house and said they had a reading that there was a gas leak. And he seemed really nervous. Like, it was kind of an odd thing, right? And this guy was poking around outside by the gas gauge at the side of the house for a little while. And I'm like, oh my God, am I going to get poisoned here? Like, what the hell is happening? And I just wonder about that visit, you know. I should have followed up better, because I just made all I did was make him confirm that the guy worked for the company, which they did. But I should have asked for more information on the measurement. But what was weird about that date is that it was July 17th. And I'm like, man, if they bugged my house so that they can hear everything that's going on or something weird like that, that would be an interesting day to do it, right? Or day to do it, because all seeing eye sums to 119, which is 7 times 17. And the fact that they came to my house on July 17th kind of was like, what the hell is going on here? So, you know, I assure everybody, don't worry about me. You know, I'm safe. I feel like I might be protected to some extent. I believe in God. I feel as if I'm protected by the Spirit of Jesus. And I'm just not worried, you know. If I have to get killed for just speaking truth and just running mathematical equations, then that's fine. I don't want to live in a world where we can't be honest with each other. We can't be straightforward with one another. We can't speak truth. If that's the type of world that we're creating, then take me out of it. Get me out of here. I don't give a fuck. That's crazy to me. So I'm going to speak truth until that happens, you know? And they'll have to kill me to stop me from doing it. Roger in KC had a drone flying over his house. Huh. Yeah, I mean, it sounded like a helicopter, like it was a deep, like a, not like a brrr, but more like a drrr, if that makes any sense. Like, it felt like it wasn't directly overhead, but it didn't sound exactly like a helicopter either, you know? So I'm not sure what it was exactly. I don't know if my database was hacked. I know that I have a lot of website problems. They've been better since I complained, and they said they upgraded my service a little bit, but my website still does go down occasionally. And so what I did is I made the calculator so that it's available offline as well. So if you go to my website and go to miscellaneous, there's now a link that says download calculator. And if you go there, it'll download a zip file where it has all the necessary files to run the Gematria calculator and the date duration calculator offline in a web browser. So that's there for you now too, guys. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Marcus, is sometimes the blog goes down too, and sometimes it goes down separately from the website. Sometimes they go down at the same time. It's really weird, you know? And it's as if, like, they're just trying to, just limiting some people, just hoping that some people, you know, don't find this knowledge when they're looking for it. They're just hoping that people, you know, come across it, see it's not working, and just move on with their lives. But if you're sharp, you should realize that the fact that it's not working should be a sign that something's messed up. Sandra, you said there's 2 dates for Amanda Crow's birthday. I don't know. I was going off Wikipedia, July 26, 1928. Oh. Oh. Oh, haha. Sharp, very sharp. So what you said July 26th and July 16th. Look at that. There's 2 different dates. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means. 63 days, 64, 2 months, 2 days, 9 weeks, 1 day. Huh. I wonder why they would do that. A part of me too that thinks that this could be a mistake. Like maybe this was just done recently, because this page has been edited a lot since it was the feature, right? Yeah, see, it didn't even have her birthday underneath here at all. I was wondering why I didn't notice this when I made the post the other day. The reason I didn't notice it is because it simply wasn't there. Somebody added a section underneath her, underneath the picture, and then they messed up the birthday. I don't know why, but they did. What about Koala Boundary, North Carolina? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, well. Marcus says you get strange phone calls. Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, this is what they're doing to us, dude. It's like, and I'm hard-pressed to believe that there's a person doing this. I feel like there might be some sort of software that's able to recognize the numbers in our tweets and shit, and they're just fucking with us. Like, what do you think, Marcus? Do you think there's a person actually, like, reading our blogs and then manually going in there and doing that? Why would they waste human energy doing that when there's a world to conquer? You know what I mean? That's how I see it anyway. Well, yeah, it's funny, like, with Alexa... Alexa obviously is listening into us, right? I mean, all you got to do is say Alexa, so it's definitely on all the time. There's a lot of people who believe that our televisions and radios are listening to us as well. I don't know how that would possibly be transmitted back, but interesting to think about. And yeah, I mean, like I said, the things I've experienced are so weird. One other big thing that sticks out to me as far as being targeted or having some kind of weird thing happen to me. Last year in October, and I've told this story several times, but I made that Las Vegas shooting video, and I waited a few days to put it up in fear of it being taken down. So when I uploaded it, I finished the video. I was all pumped up. I was in my house. I was like, finally, you know, because I spent so much time on it. And the video finished rendering. I clicked it, and I started to drag it into YouTube to upload the video. And immediately, my whole block lost power. Like, this block, my block next to me, a couple blocks over, 5 or 6 blocks completely lost power. And I called the energy company, and it was like, oh, there was an equipment malfunction. We expect power to be restored at 3:30. And I'm like, really? 3:30, huh? What the hell is going on? And about 2:30 is when the power came back on. But it was about 3 hours where we lost power. So I drove down to the nearest Starbucks and sat in the parking lot and uploaded the video there. But I was like, man, of all the times to cut the power, the very second I begin dragging the video, like literally I clicked the mouse, poof, all my power went out. And I was like, what the fuck, man? And I went outside and there was somebody cutting branches down here, and we talked to him, and he was like, no, man, I didn't cut a power line. I swear to God, no power line got cut here. And the We Energies said it wasn't a power line. So, and then I wasn't the only person that happened to, too. I heard stories about another YouTuber who was up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and the power company went across the street and was in one of those big buckets up on the pole. And that person left, and then the power went out shortly afterwards. So they were definitely targeting a bunch of us after that. Fuck them, that's what I say. I'll just keep exposing the truth, because that's what needs to be done. All right, everybody, I'm going to sign out and, do it for this video. I hope everybody got what you needed from this. I think there were some really strong numeric rituals to talk about today. For any sports fans who don't think that sports are rigged, check out that decode on the Jimmy Butler trade. That should definitely wake them up. All right, everybody, that'll do it. Keep seeking and speaking that truth. God bless. Have yourselves a great rest of your weekend. Adios.